my name is Andreas. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Focal. And we're, in a nutshell, we're an AI-powered workspace for marketing creatives. So we help out with various aspects of the creative production process. We work closely together with, Small Giant Games, of course, but also the likes of Supercell, Huge Games, which is somewhere in the audience, Trail Mix, and so on. And today I'm very, very excited to be joined by Tuomo. I would like to introduce him first. He's a modest man, but he is one of our favorite creative producers to work with, even though I think you go by a different title now. But he's built a very good system for kind of scaling the creative production process. So we're going to share a few tips and tricks, some examples that we worked on together, and take a closer look at how they structure things over there. But please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Andreas. So yes, Tuomo from Small Giant Games in Helsinki. If you know Small Giant Games by our products, it's definitely Fireside Puzzles, our massive hit game, which is obviously been out there for several years, but is still kind of the king of the hill on match 3 RPG genre, at least here in the West. But yeah, happy to be here today to talk a little bit more how we do things in the creative asset production. So yeah, some learnings from the trenches where you have to actually make shit happen.
Yeah, very good. And actually, before we jump into the slides, we're going to be the first ones to test out a Slido poll. So hopefully you have your phones ready. And please, if we could get the poll up on the screen, let's see how this will work. Getting there. Yeah, so just would want to set the scene by just kind of finding out what your volumes look like at the studios that you work on. So I think we can see these. Sorry?
Including variants. So
yes, including variants.
Yeah. Let's throw all of the sizes in there.
Okay, 50 to 100 seems to be the winning one, but also a lot of 100 to 300 in there. So clearly there's a lot of creative production happening and new creatives are being shipped. Then we can move back to the slides. Thanks, everyone. So let's start from the basics here. Can you start, Tuomo, by describing what the team looks like in terms of roles and just setup?
Yeah. As I already mentioned, the Empires and Puzzles has already been out. The game was originally launched in 2017, but very early on, they made the decision in the marketing team to put pretty much all of the resources and energy into performance marketing side of things. So they kind of identify that it's not the sort of product that necessarily needs super strong brand initiatives or even product marketing side of things. So over the years, we've grown into something size that you're seeing on the screen there. So we have internal, obviously, campaign people handling the campaigns and networks and bringing that intel back to the internal creative team. So basically, I'm leading this 6-person internal team that includes creative producers, motion graphic artists, static asset artists. Then we also have some internal support, couple of dedicated people that focus on the data and tech side of things. But yeah, we see a lot of value in having strong internal creative team as well. And we besides the internal team, as you can see, we also have a very strong support from a variety of different external partners. And there's definitely these certain where we want the internal versus the external resource to focus on. So external, we see mostly that it makes sense to focus on the volume of things, scaling things up. And with external partners, we are not necessarily looking for 1 or 2 shops that can do a lot of things well, or we were specifically looking for partners that specialize or are really good at something, a specific side of things. So identifying those strengths and then making them work on stuff that fits those strengths. But yeah, and then on the internal side, it makes much more sense to put the internal resources into concepting, working on key assets, and then of course helping to supervise the work of the external partners.
Excellent. And here, actually, we want to do another Slido poll. So going crazy on the Slido polls. This is the last one that we'll do if we can pull that up. Love to know what best describes the setup of other studios in the audience. So is it mostly in-house production, is mostly outsourced, or a hybrid approach?
It's an exciting race.
Yes.
Mostly in-house and hybrid is going. Yeah, mostly outsourced, gaining some traction.
Okay. Okay, so clearly a lot more in-house production than I think mostly outsourced. Okay, I think that gives us a good enough idea. We can go back to the material. So a lot of boxes on here, Tuomo, which doesn't come as a surprise to anyone, I think, in terms of a lot of stakeholders being part of the production process. But can you talk about what the day-to-day looks like then in terms of communication and sharing information between all of these?
Sure. If you actually go to the next slide, there's a video should start playing. Maybe let's keep it looping in the background while we talk. But this is a very simplified version of a day in life of creative producer working with either internal or external projects. And this is where we're kind of currently at now. As I said, it's a simplified version, but this is what the day-to-day looks like at the moment.
Yeah, and I remember when we started talking about this, this was roughly 2 years ago, but you were talking a lot about like the communication side of things and really streamlining that across stakeholders and especially I think external vendors at the time.
Yeah, like you might say that it was all over the place, the process when I joined like a few years ago, and like I called it like chaos buffet of different tools, methods. Like I think a lot of you might recognize the situation where you start building the external connections, start working with them, and internally you keep using the tools that you had in place, the emails, the Slacks, the Dropboxes, Google Drives, and all that. Then some partner might have a separate platform for the reviews, Frame.io or something like that, which helps a lot. But then some partner might not have anything, so they'll just send the previews to you in Slack or something, or God forbid in email. So yeah, like we had, let's say, a dozen partner and dozen different ways of doing things. And the final wake-up call for our team was that when we actually were preparing to launch the Empires and Puzzles in the Chinese market, and we just realized the huge addition to volume of production volumes that required. Also, we anticipated that the communication aspects towards the local vendors there might be more challenging for us. And as an added bonus, there was like a new additional like legal approval loop because of the Chinese censorship laws and all that. Our local publisher had to legally review and put their stamp on every piece of creative asset. So we saw that this buffet won't just do it. We will drown on it. So yeah, we started to look for a solution back then, and so a little over 2 years ago. And what we ended up with was Focal, so which has helped immensely in the process. So if before that our work was the kind of the opposite of efficient, like this was the solution for us where we could bring all of the different aspects of the production end to end under a single platform. And we then basically told all of the vendors that we were working with, we love this product, we will keep using it from now on. If you want to keep working with us, you'll just start using it as well.
And they agreed?
They agreed, and like, well, we pay them, so they kind of have to agree on a lot of it. But actually, honestly, they saw the positive side effects as well, and like learned to use it really quickly. And like, yeah, that actually went a lot smoother than I anticipated originally. But at least with us internally, that allowed a single creative producer to handle a massive amount of like external partnerships and productions. Understand, you didn't have to jump between different platforms anymore, and like it was such a lifesaver for me personally and a lot of people in our team.
Okay, so like centralize the communication side of things. multiple ways of doing that, obviously, but that was one example. But then, so we just saw kind of a focus on like the creative review, creative approval process, but obviously there's still always limited time, limited resources. So can you talk about how you prioritize specific concepts or iterations? Basically, how do you bring stuff forward in the pipeline if you're doing things at scale?
Yeah, absolutely. As said, no matter how efficient you build your systems, you'll always have the same amount of time to work on things. So there's another philosophy, like this production philosophy that we've taken very early on, that with this limited time, it makes more sense for us to focus on coming up as many unique concepts at the beginning, not focusing on minuscule iterations and like just volume of ads in the beginning, but actually put those resources into coming up with those unique concepts and trying to then grow them into be heroes. Obviously, there's the side there that we might kind of let go of a concept quite early that way. Like if we don't see promise in first iteration or basically the second, we'll just move on. Like, yeah, sometimes you might find a winner and a hero on the 5th round of iteration, but at the same time, there's risk that the needle won't move any more in the 5th or 6th round than it did in the first one. So we've always kind of started off with creating as many concepts as possible, both internally and with the external help.
Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah. This is a little bit of an older example, but nicely visualizes then how it starts to move forward when we then start to identify those potential heroes. Obviously, we identify them through the usual KPIs, just to spend and scale, and then downloads, retention, ROAS, all that. But yeah, once you start showing promise in there, then you can start how we started. Then we start to think of the iterations in scale. We start from these low-hanging fruits where you can just do edits, cut downs. Then we call them mashups internally, where we just edit together a potential new hero with an existing top performer. And one of the things that has worked for us so well over the years is just finding the best possible video plus playable pairings. So it's a lot about like mixing the existing assets already, and that is especially if you have even a little bit of an internal resource, that sort of stuff you can do really fastly and efficiently and keep the train moving. But then if you please move to the next slide, once that proves fruitful, and then when you start to actually see a need for massive amount of additional iterations that take the initial concept, there I think especially the help from the external partners comes into place, because whoever came up with the initial original concept, like be it internal or external, if they've already worked for a few months on that, they're curious people, they're very likely already very bored with that one. So they want to maybe turn their focus and energy into coming up with those new concepts. So it definitely then helps that you have a big pool of studios and resources there to help you and kind of then take their spin on the concept. And hopefully it will turn from one hero into multiple heroes over time. Then obviously these sort of hero trends might down rather quickly, as trends do, but on some happy occasion, it turns into evergreen concepts, like we call them internally. So something that seems to just work every single time. And obviously you're not hitting with every ad, but you can keep creating additional variations, keep attaching that hook or that thing that you recognize into a lot of like in this example, we called these dress ups, which is like, yeah, there's costumes in the games and you can customize the hero. But I think what we kind of identified was that this sells like a more casual idea for a more casual player about how the like leveling up and progression feels like in an mid-core RPG game, which in the end our game goes very deep into those mid-core RPG elements. But for a lot of audience, just growing numbers and such isn't that exciting. So we basically found a way to visualize that promise that seemed to work really well for a big audience.
Yeah. And so if we kind of sum up until here, we took a look at the team composition and how that's set up. You're centralizing and kind of standardizing the communication, especially during the feedback rounds when you can easily lose a lot of time. Focus on concepts first and then use external partners primarily to iterate on things. Would love to jump into AI. There's already been quite a bit of discussion on how AI will move the needle and change things with regards to marketing creatives. So if we talk about the process specifically, how do you see that playing out and where do you see the biggest impact?
Yeah, like personal opinion, like generative AI, like I see still quite immense challenges in using it for actual product, especially in the sort of products that are very character focused. Like we have a massive amount of heroes, and from the examples you can see on the screen, they're still like, they're not super simple cartoon, like they're illustrated characters, but there's a lot of like actual human emotions, expression seeing. So there's like still quite severe limitations for production in my set. But where I actually have my like hopes is that AI or any of these new means just would solve some of these busy work, shovel work issues that we have, like helping us like do this sort of like very important stuff like adding metadata tags, working on the taxonomy, like this, which actually is super important for the learnings part of things. But it's something that, to be honest, like no one who ended up coming excited working in the video gaming industry, it isn't the sort of thing that they came in and hoped to work on, like tagging metadata by hand so definitely that's where I have my hopes that it will be like big jumps and leaps in the present day and in the near future.
Yeah, and we created an example of this actually because I think one thing that Small Giant Games and a lot of others that we work with do really well is to have kind of a large taxonomy, way of essentially categorizing and labeling the creative assets. And this, I think, personally is very crucial for a good creative process, not just for performance tracking, but also just to kind of review maybe on a monthly basis where you spent your resources. So even if it's, a spreadsheet that you're building and go back to every month on what did we end up producing, how many new concepts, how many iterations, how many localized concepts, different styles, different motivations, seasonal beats potentially, and things like this. And this is where we've done a lot of testing and AI already can help out a lot. That was kind of a quicker video, but basically just using AI to try to learn and understand as much as possible about the video itself, from audio to any piece of text in the video to detecting scenes and capturing the visuals in them, to being able to then take like your personal taxonomy and apply that automatically. So kind of removing some busy work there. We couldn't show Small Giant's own taxonomy here, but just as an example. And okay, so we're all the way to kind of approved concepts now. They've been tagged. Then we're getting to kind of the final steps and also a personal kind of favorite topic of mine. So the creative performance. How can you talk about how you track creative performance then?
Yeah, like obviously full focus on a lot of the performance KPIs as I mentioned, but I think the one thing, if I'm being totally honest with this group, like where we could be doing a lot better or more methodologically is the kind of the creative insights and the learnings, and sharing those forward, even just internally, like it's the long tail of things. You're so focused in the day-to-day grind and producing these things and like following the initial performance for the first couple of weeks and such and taking learnings for there. But then when you do things on a massive scale, like hundreds, thousands of videos or different assets per year, basically, like you should be looking a lot more into the big picture, trying to see those learnings that you can grasp from that massive volume of things. But it can be very laborious. Like here's a couple of examples on the screen of the sort of stuff that we can dig up internally. Like for example, we categorize every video that we do into these different style categories. And then maybe you will find something interesting when you just look at in the long run, just the video duration variety that you've created over last 6 months or a year or something. Or like you can look at the amount of different vendors doing, like a lot of this stuff would be super valuable, but it gets too easily lost in the noise and with the other, like gets buried with the other work. So, and I'm just talking about like sharing this stuff internally, like where we could be sharing all of the data and the numerical data and all that freely. But obviously the external partners would love to hear a lot of this like learnings and such, but it's still kind of challenging to find a suitable way to create the sort of reports around this that you could share externally and that would be easily chewable by creative teams who aren't necessarily super focused on the performance KPIs and numeric data.
But you still have obviously a template in place that allows you to kind of do this on a recurring basis and also share this internally. And we wanted to end with like an example because this is also, I would personally recommend that this is an area that should be looked at with a lot of detail when you're talking to any kind of successful gaming studio. There's going to be performance dashboards already there and every single piece of information most likely about the performance. The problem is that they're typically very numbers heavy, and if you ask them if that information makes it all the way to the creative team, that's not necessarily the case. So I would stress to kind of get to a way of reporting also that is visual and kind of focus on building the bridge between the marketing team and the creative team. And this is something we worked on, just showing a quick example. This is not, as a small disclaimer, Small Giant Games real data, just complete demo data here. But yeah, I wanted to share some thoughts on what we've been working on with regards to making the reports visual. So it's inspiring for a creative team to look at, but also, again, kind of tying it back to the creative taxonomy.
Exactly. Our wish would be to find ways where the creative team could themselves easily pull understandable reports out of the system and kind of share those. Like, yeah, we're in the mercy of the research from the campaign and data team currently to create a lot of this knowledge for us. And there is a lot of communication, luckily, between the creative team and the campaign and data team. But still, turning those into these sort of reports and learnings is something we should be putting a lot more focus on too.
Okay, we're running out of time, but should we still wrap everything up? Do you want to wrap it up into 3 bullet points?
Maybe if you take something with you from this session today, like you have to have a system in place to battle the chaos. Like you just can't be ad hoc and reactive and kind of work with the systems that others are bringing to you. Like when you have the right workflows in place, like you can do so much more and bigger amount of productions with less resources internally. Then focus on removing busy work by as much as possible, like be it AI, be it whatever, so internal development, an external tool that's already out there. But if you're identifying a thing that's repeatable, laborious, like off-putting, like just focus on how to solve this and let people concentrate on the stuff that is actually get their creative juices running. And make sure that you also have a recurring feedback loop, not just during the productions, but what happens after something is delivered. Like that, track what has been produced and tie it to the performance side of things, because all of this boils down to having good communications and systems around it. Like during the productions, you want the feedback to be efficient, focused, so that it takes things forward. Like feedback should always lead to a better end product, not just something different. But I think same applies to the feedback and the discussions and communication that you have after the production has been wrapped. But
agreed. Yeah.
That is all.
That is a wrap
from us for now.
I know we have a lot of creative producers and project managers in the crowd, so would love to discuss more if we're getting something wrong or you feel differently. But thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. All right, so let's see what the audience cooked up question-wise. So first off, how many external partners do you use on a daily basis?
Let's say for Empires and Puzzles, we have a roughly of dozen any given time. As I said, we keep this pool kind of alive. We kind of review their performance and kind of, as I said, we've usually picked most of them for quite a specific. Some are super good at UGC, live action sort of stuff. Some are like, can do very cheap but effective CGI animation and stuff like so. But I'd say around 10-ish, dozen or something like that. But you have to kind of select them carefully and so that things don't get stale. You kind of have to slightly keep them on our toes, but that's the part of the creative process. You want people to be excited and not just do similar things from month to month and year to year.
And is there a case where your creative insights actually helped you find a new hero creative?
Definitely, like obviously we are very data oriented, and these like as I mentioned, some of these KPIs, you can start identifying these things. And like we have, I think as many of people here might have the challenge of some hero concepts become too big of a heroes, that they hog up all the scale and spend and all that. But then you'll just have to really drill down on those creative insights and see what was the reason why this hero ad keeps outperforming everyone. Is it something repeatable, and like in a best case create either alternatives or something that balances things out in the long run?
And a technical one. So what makes, in your opinion, a good naming convention?
What a lovely topic. I want to meet this person who it's simple enough that pretty much anyone in the company can understand what the things are there. Like it is super challenging to create something like that, but in my personal opinion, it should be simple, unified throughout the whole company and different games and productions, so that there's no differences between the different products, but also that it should give you certain like basic things on a first glance. So hopefully there's the aspect ratio, the duration, the language, stuff like that, and like, but yeah, keep it simple, stupid.
And I would add to this, because we do see a lot of studios using unique kind of creative IDs. So even though it should be easy to understand, having like a unique concept ID plus a unique variant ID, if can find a way to add that in automatically, that typically helps the creative ops quite a bit later on, which you can just refer to a number.
Cool. And does the creative team have access to the reports you guys were showing? Are they somehow able to independently interpret them themselves, come up with next steps, etc.?
Yes, I said like currently the internal creative team has the access to the dashboards and tool that the campaign team and the data persons use, but those have been developed to the needs of those people who work there on a daily basis. So it can be quite confusing and scary even for creative people to dig out what we actually. So that's why we're definitely looking for these more easy to grasp, more visual alternatives then the creative team would be preferably able to dig some of the information themselves, see these oversights and learnings by themselves. But then definitely there's always the need for more robust reporting from those true pros who can then use all of these different tools and create much more like handmade reports for us.
Cool. And I'll end on one interesting one here. So when and how are you deciding when to go back to early losing concepts to give them another shot?
Yeah, as I said, we are pretty brutal with this, that if the concept doesn't show promise quickly, we just bail on it on most of the time. We every now and then internally create a team, we go back maybe every 6 months and look at the back pool and kind of say, damn, I really wish this would have, like we might handpick few of them and give them like a new chance. But yeah, we've decided to be quite brutal and then put those energy and resources and time into coming up with entirely new concepts instead.
Got it. Thank you both so much for your time.